begin each story, I will recite a spell in Mandarin to protect you. 观自在菩萨行深般若波罗蜜多时，照见五蕴皆空，度一切苦厄。舍利子，色不异空，空不异色，色即是空，空即是色，受想行识，亦复如是。舍利子是诸法空相，不生不灭，不垢不净，不增不减，是故空中无色，受想行识，眼耳鼻舌身意，无色声香味触法，无眼界，乃至无眼世界，无明亦无明尽，乃至无老死亦无老死尽，无苦集灭道，无智亦无得，亦无所得故。菩提萨埵，依般若波罗蜜多故，心无挂碍，无挂碍故，无有恐怖，远离颠倒梦想，究竟涅槃。三世诸佛依般若波罗蜜多故，得阿耨多罗三藐三菩提。故知般若波罗蜜多是大神咒，是大明咒，是无上咒，是无等等咒，能除一切苦，真实不虚。故说般若波罗蜜多咒，即说咒曰：揭谛揭谛，波罗揭谛，波罗僧揭谛，菩提萨婆诃。A tailor and a mysterious old woman. At the end of the Ming Dynasty, a spooky journey of retribution. In the final days of the Ming Dynasty, there lived in the capital a celebrated tailor known as Zhang Chaoshu. Though his appearance was far from handsome, Zhang possessed a heart of unparalleled kindness. He married a woman named Mrs. Zen, who was as beautiful as she was beloved. Together, they managed their tailoring shop, weaving both threads and love into the fabric of their lives. On a particular day, when the sun shone gloriously above and magpies chattered on the branches, an imposing group burst into the shop. Flaunting lush fabrics, they demanded outfits for their lord and his family, promising riches if pleased but threats if not. The formidable speaker was none other than Zhu Kai, the steward of the noble Zhu Yangmao. Understanding the gravity of the task, Zhang hurriedly nodded his acceptance. That night, under a lattice of moon and starlight, Zhang, weighed down by the illness of his father, was comforted by Mrs. Zen. She gently wrapped him in a cloak and supported him back to the warmth of their home. The following morning, as a delicate drizzle misted the earth, tragedy struck. His brother, Pu Fang, brought the heart-wrenching news of their father's death. In his distress, Zhang accidentally damaged the precious fabric meant for Zhu Yangmao's garments. Zhang sent his father to the cemetery, went home and froze in his chair, timid. He did not know how to face Zhu's clothes. He cut the bad thing. Zen came over to him and said, "You go up to your sister's house to hide for a while. I'll deal with this matter at home, and you'll come back when this matter has calmed down." One day, Pu Fang hurriedly ran to Zhang's sister's house and said, "Brother, run for your life. Zhu has smashed our tailor's store with his men, and knowing that you are hiding here, he is up here to arrest you." Zhang panicked after hearing this and fled through his sister's back door. On a pitch-black night, as if heavily smeared with thick ink across the skyline, Zhang stumbled along, 1 foot deep, 1 foot shallow. He lost his shoes, his clothes were torn by branches, and his hair was filled with dust. In a panic, he looked up at the sky and around at the darkness, lamenting the vicissitudes of life, never imagining he'd end up in such a state. After walking for a while longer, suddenly there was a gale. The sky thundered loudly, and it poured down rain. Just as he was sorrowfully wondering where to go, he noticed a house not far ahead of him. He went up and knocked on the door, and out came a dignified old woman. The old woman smiled politely at him and said, "Looking at your face, you are not an outlaw, and coming to my humble abode at night, you must have encountered a difficult situation." After a few days, one day the old woman said to Zhang, "Your behavior invites me to like you. I want to go out recently to visit friends. Stay at home, I'll be back in a few days." After saying this, the old woman went away. In the twinkling of an eye, some more days passed, and one day Zhang stood in the courtyard thinking of his wife Zhen. There came the sound of knocking on the door. Zhang opened the door and saw that Zhen was standing outside the door with a parcel in her hand and her brother Pu Fang. Zhen said, "The tailor's store has been taken over by Zhu." On their way to escape, they meet an old woman who is willing to help them. Zhen said, "The old woman then led us here. Let us in," and she disappeared. Zhen told Zhang about the old woman's appearance, and Zhang came to a realization. The old woman was the owner of the house, but why? Some time passed, and still the owner of the house, the old woman, did not return. One day, Zhang instructed Pu Fang to return to the capital to check it out, and a few days later, Pu Fang brought Zhang good news. Chu got his comeuppance, suddenly screaming about a ghost one dark night. He died of excessive shock. Zhang instructed Zhen and Pu Fang to pack their bags immediately, and they walked out of the old woman's house. They were amazed to find the old woman's home transformed into a tomb and a graveyard at their feet. They finally walked back into the home they'd been away from for so long, a neat old woman's dress hanging on the doorway, and Zhen's puzzled eyes looked over at Zhang. It turned out that before Zhang had married Zhen, he had once met a boy who had sold himself to bury his mother. The boy had lost his strength due to his hungry stomach. The weather was getting hotter and hotter, and the body of the boy's mother stank in the sun. Zhang was kind-hearted, and when he saw this scene, his heart was filled with compassion. He bought a pair of good clothes for the dead old woman to put on and helped her to be buried. He took the boy into his home and raised him with great care as if he were his own brother. The boy who has grown up now is his current brother, Pu Fang.